Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I'm almost completely caught up with marking and grading everything now. Uh, yeah, sorry for yawning in your ear, but I've just been really busy and I'm just now beginning to catch up. Shouts out to S Jacques for coming through on both Cash App and with links to relevant issues, and he sent to me a link about Sunshine Shoulders in the Philippines, who faced accusations and they did not come from the locals. He faced accusations of probably the second most serious level of offense in the Philippines. And it affected his entry into the country after one particular trip, I think he said, to Thailand. Um, what it was that some expats, other expats, saw his channel and for whatever reason they decided that the information he was putting out was too dangerous for them. This does bring to mind a particular phenomena. When it comes to just outright stupidity, the locals here in this country will stress you out because they always try to wiggle around consequences. They always do. They don't pay attention. They just, and you have a hard time telling them, okay, listen, we have to be careful with this. This is intricate, or there's a nuance. You start telling them these things and they just interrupt you, go, khalas, 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 khalas. They don't work on their own minds. They don't like to work their minds, let alone work on their own minds. I gave them an easy midterm for one class. My instructions were, my instructions included, as I told you, they have to pick a nation in the Americas, but outside the USA. And just give me a 5-slide PowerPoint presentation on its economy and cite the sources with MLA style citations. Nobody used MLA style citations, but most of the students just chose to do the economy of Saudi Arabia. My instructions were the country needs to be in the New World, but not the US. Any country in the Americas except for the USA. They started giving me excuses when I told them that they failed automatically. And one guy really got on my nerves because he decided to raise his hand before I was done speaking to ask me if I know why they did it. And I told him, I don't fiv a guck why they did it. My instructions were clear. They didn't read them, that's all. You had to read the instructions, but the assignment was actually easy. One guy said, well, I ran it through Google Translate and the translation was wrong. I don't fiv a guck. You're not supposed to rely on a translation in an advanced English class. You're supposed to be able to read them in English and just translate individual words. You ran the whole translation through that. I have a right to do that if you write to me in Arabic. You don't have a right to do that if I write to you in English because you're an advanced English student. But the thing is, they started making excuses, but they don't generally do certain things like what people were doing to Sunshine Shoulder. See, even here where I live, when I was falsely accused, it turned out the student didn't hear me. And I believe him. It was loud that day. It was hard to hear because too many students were being noisy. Taking education as a joke. So, um, his false accusation turned out to be not an intentional lie. We still got on his ass about it because if he had a difficult time hearing, he wasn't supposed to assume what I said. He was supposed to make sure. So we got on his ass about that. He's stuck in my class now with me for the semester. And when he does the work, I give him all the points, but I give him the blues the minute he slacks off. But actually trying to throw me under the bus, you don't run across a whole lot of that here. That's not what happens here. What normally happens here is that the stress you get is because you are one type of person from the West that belongs here, can do the job here, can be good to people here. And then you've got these other colleagues that don't belong here. Their attitudes are wrong. They're biased. They don't really like anyone. They'll mistreat anybody. They're just assholes. And they're racist, nationalist, Islamophobes, and they're working over here. You got them like that. They're here for the money, but underneath they're boiling, and it's not because of an actual wrong misbehavior per se, but because they just don't like Arabs or any other Muslims for that matter. And they don't like darkies, meaning us, and they don't, they believe that they're just superior to the rest of humanity, even though, despite their so-called superiority, they can't function in a system run by their own people. Really, the right-wing white folk, they're here. And they like to test boundaries and push boundaries sometimes. You have to watch out for them. They're a bigger threat here. They're a problem. They're more dangerous. When you are where you are, you may have to worry about some of these same types of Americans getting you into trouble if they're in a position to do so. When you come here, you have to watch out for them as well. But the thing is, I'm going to tell you how you get around it. When you make friends with the locals, you get to educate them about these right-wing white folk, white supremacists, even black conservatives. You get to educate them about them. And this way, when one of those folks comes along and says something about you, they may be able to tell who's who. Now, you're less likely to have anyone do a false accusation against you here. But if you do get one and it's intentional and malicious, it's more likely to come from another expat. That's where a lot of the arguments occur. You're being told oftentimes by some boom shikas and bonquishas that everybody hates you black men no matter where you go because you're a black man and because they're not black. And that you're just at the bottom of the totem pole. That's what you're being told. In reality, in order for you to be at the bottom of any totem pole when you go to certain other places, you're going to have to be around other expats, and in that context, you might be at the bottom of their little totem poles. And where I live, it's actually right wingers that wind up at the bottom of the totem pole once they're known as such. That's normally who winds up at the bottom. They get moved a few places and then they get fired and then they get sent home. They're the ones who have the hardest time obeying the rules. So if you want the most safety from such types of people, it's probably going to come here. But no matter where it is that you go, one of the reasons I tell you that it is good to befriend the local men and not just ignore them because you're pursuing chicks, I tell you that because they need to know about some of these right-wing white folk and they need information from you. And the thing is, if you want to talk about an alliance, well, alliances are best cemented by actual mutual interest, and a mutual interest is that these furthermuckers don't gain control and free reign, that they're watched, that they're recognized and seen. So if you go to Indonesia, it's a good thing to make friends with Indonesian men and let them know, learn the vocabulary in Bahasa to be able to tell them this white conservative is not like us. I believe that you and I and he were born equal. He believes that he was born superior. He believes that there should be a rule of law and rules should be strict until he breaks them and then they should be lenient because he's a white guy. That's what this guy believes in. He's not an egalitarian. He does not believe in a meritocracy. He preaches a meritocracy. He believes that whites have already won in any meritocracy on their merit, and that he should inherit that because he's white. That's not a meritocracy. You see, they need to know these things. And then this way, when one of them does decide to pull some of that stunt or pull some of that crap, like what they tried to pull on Sunshine's shoulders, and then they come and look at you and find out that you a brother, and these were some right-wing Australians or some right-wing Britishers or Americans talking that crap about you, they say, wait a minute, we got some white folk that sound like this accusing a black American man. Yeah, probably not much to that accusation. Let's investigate all of them and see. And then they'll find dirt on them and not on you. But this can best be done by putting it into the national consciousness, the collective consciousness of such people. Who's who? See, where I live, a lot of the fluently bilingual guys know who Karens are. They know what it means. That's important. They're like a shield at times. And as a matter of fact, oftentimes the Karens and their brothers know about a certain boundary they can't overstep. I'm Muslim and I'm black, and I get along with locals who have two brain cells to rub together. Well, let me rephrase that. Who are willing to rub together those two brain cells. They know if they come with an accusation against me, and they may try it, they're more likely than a local, but they know if they do as well, that they're going to have some kind of proof or evidence. But what they don't know is how many people here are clued into who the huck they are. And who the huck I'm not, knowing that I'm not that kind of American, I'm not that kind of Westerner, but they are, and that they may just simply be upset because I'm an egalitarian. And since I'm not in Massa's backyard anymore, now Massa has to run to a Brown authority to tell him about the black nigga he doesn't like, and probably got a lie to do it. Now they know. And that can bother the hell out of them. what happened to Sunshine Shoulders was really unfortunate. If you don't break the rules, it shouldn't happen to you. But I did want you guys to understand that while you can, if you know how to behave, you're not very likely to get legally jammed up. And while it's good to know the laws where you live, I do want you to understand that if you are a black man with any sense, you're most likely to get jammed up by somebody that comes out the West. You're not very likely to just get jammed up because the local's mad. Not very likely. Here, if I come across a disgruntled sister, I could get jammed up. I don't come across them disgruntled or not that often. And if I rub one of the disgruntled white guys the wrong way, the same thing could happen. But then again, I could also turn and do something to them. But the chances of this coming from a local, even though I did face this due to noise interference more so than his bad intention, I must say that the chances, even after having been through that, I must tell you that the actual chances of going through this maliciously are not usually from the locals. And they will try to get out of things and wiggle their way out of consequences they have provoked. They will do that. But when it comes to a serious accusation that's going to cause authorities to investigate you, they don't. They would rather not, actually, because they could wind up being investigated. I hope that what I've said helps to clear things up for you. And I want you all to give S Jacques a thank you for bringing this to my attention. Before I finish this up, I'll give you guys a few updates as well on the Buy Me a Coffee. I now have 2 levels. And so there are supporters, and then there is business class for the same price, but it's just per month. So if you give a donation once, you're a supporter. If you subscribe for $5 a month, then you're business class. And if you subscribe for $10 a month, then you're first class. There are more confessions. I'm kind of shocked at what I find, but I do find them. Yeah, it gets ridiculous, kind of. But yeah, finding more confessions. So posting them up, and now that I'm finished marking a lot, I'll have more insight to give you guys. But I'll also be updating you on the academic performance of many of the students. And that is so that you understand the academic potential that you have and what it actually is compared to other groups. I want you guys to be able to objectively and accurately compare and contrast academic standards growing up in the States with academic standards growing up in some other part of the world. And so that's what I have shown when information like that reaches me, and that's what I will continue to show. But right now, we're up to 16 confessions. One of them actually was covered by Crimson Cure. But that lady is probably going to take it down. And so I have there, you will see them. You'll see these confessions in a form that will stay up even if the confessors take them down or remove them later. That's how I do it. If I do put a link up, I still have an image so that when they take the link down, the image is still there and it's stuck. so that you guys can understand what's going on. Um, and I'll start to do more audio for the Buy Me a Coffee for the business and first class sections of Jet Black Air. And again, I want to thank S Jacques for coming through with the links and coming through in the Cash App. I want to thank D Smith for coming through the most generously. S Jacques for coming through the most consistently recently, and MLR for the consistency that he showed before. And I also want to give a shout out to AC, to Accountable Commentary, because it's like this. One, he's actually doing a pretty good analysis. But number two, with that militant stance, he makes it a lot easier for you gentlemen to be heard if you do choose to engage with these quiches and or if they ask you questions and you begin to answer them. He makes it a lot easier for them to hear what the hell you're saying, because he pretty much tells them, stay away, I'm not even talking to you. And while I don't do that on my channel, the fact that there is a channel that does that is a hell of a litmus test. It's a hell of a sign. Not that it's going to help those that are adults now, that it is not helped before, because they're not going to change, but it is something that can help a lot of the younger girls to see what not to become before they get old enough to make that decision. This provides the evidence that innocent girls of today need, so as to not become the wicked witches of the West tomorrow. And I only care about them because they're still innocent. Thank you all for listening. And as always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum and black heterosexual non-select male power, because they don't like in a black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.